Okay, before we even say hello to anyone, a question. When was the last time fear stopped you from doing something you wanted to do? Not real danger, just fear. The voice that said, don't. What did it talk you out of? Jake, what comes to mind?
Ooh, I've got one, and it's embarrassing in the best way. The kind of story I tell at parties to make myself look humble. It involves a plane, a wedding, and 4 years of creative excuses. But you can't ask a question like that and not answer it yourself, so you're in this with me.
I'll answer mine, I promise. I never ask what I can't answer myself. But 4 years of creative excuses? I need a preview. What kind of excuses are we talking about?
The kind that sound perfectly reasonable until you look closely. But the short preview is, I was terrified of flying. Not nervous, properly physically terrified. And I built my whole life around avoiding it, like it was a trap I had to outsmart. Full story after we say hello, obviously.
Obviously. But first, hello, and a warm welcome to everyone listening. If you're new here, I'm Emma, and this is Jake. Today's conversation is about fear, what it protects us from, what it steals from us, and how to stop it from running the show.
And we'll share 2 very different fears, argue about whether fear is ever actually useful, and give you a few tools that genuinely work. Plus a game. Obviously a game. Stick around. This one's personal.
Right, so, Jake, the plane. Start at the beginning, the very first time you remember feeling it. When did this fear start?
When I was 9, I watched a documentary about plane crashes. A terrible idea for a 9-year-old, honestly. And something in my brain just locked. The fear didn't fade with time. It compounded. By my 20s, I couldn't watch a plane take off in a movie without my palms sweating.
Palms sweating at a movie? That's a proper phobia, not a preference. So how did you manage? 4 years of creative excuses. Give me examples.
Oh, I was a genius of avoidance. The dates don't work. Trains are more scenic. I'm allergic to airports. I once drove 14 hours to a wedding instead of flying 2, and I told myself I was being adventurous. I was being a coward with a good story.
A coward with a good story. I'm stealing that. But something must have cracked eventually. What happened?
My best friend got married in another country. He asked me to be his best man, and the wedding was 600 miles away, across the sea. I had 2 choices, fly or tell him I couldn't be there because of a fear I was ashamed to even name. And I realized I was about to miss the most important day of his life because of something that existed entirely inside my head.
So what did you do? Did you just book the flight and hope for the best?
I did the opposite of what my brain wanted. I booked the flight first and panicked second. The weeks before were brutal. I barely slept. I read the safety card online 100 times. I checked the weather forecast for the flight path every morning. I was preparing for a disaster that had a fraction of a % chance of happening.
And the flight itself? Walk me through it. The moment you sat down, the takeoff. Were you a wreck?
A wreck is generous. I cried at the gate. A grown man crying at the gate, holding his boarding pass like a death sentence. The flight attendant asked if I was okay, and I said, "I'm fine. I'm just very committed to this flight." She gave me extra snacks, the universal language of comfort. Snacks are the first step of recovery.
Snacks are the first step of recovery. That's going in my notes. But the landing, how did you feel when you touched down?
Here's the strange part. I felt nothing. No relief, no triumph. Just, oh, that's it? All that terror, all those years, for a 2-hour ride with extra snacks. The fear was real, but the danger never was. That was the biggest lesson of my life, and it took me 15 years and a wedding to learn it.
The fear was real, but the danger never was. That's huge. Okay, my turn. My fear is quieter than yours, and honestly more embarrassing in a way.
Now I have to know, what is it?
Confrontation, conflict, saying no. I'm terrified of disappointing people. So for years, I said yes to everything, avoided every difficult conversation, and let small resentments pile up until they became big ones.
Ah, the classic avoid the conversation and hope it disappears strategy. And how did that work out for you?
Terribly. The worst example? A roommate who never paid her share of the bills, not once in 6 months. For 6 months, I said nothing. Every time I saw the reminder on my phone, my stomach would knot up. I'd rehearse speeches in the shower, then chicken out at the door. I was paying her rent out of fear of a conversation.
Paying her rent? Emma, that's the fear tax. Literally paying money to avoid discomfort. How much did that silence cost you?
Months of money and peace. And it gets worse. I promise, this story has a low point. One day, she casually announced she was moving out, and I'd be stuck with the unpaid bills. And I finally understood. The conversation I was avoiding would have taken 8 minutes and ended with her being mildly annoyed. 8 minutes of mild annoyance. That's what I was paying to avoid.
So what finally happened? Did you have the conversation?
I did. I wrote down 3 sentences, practiced them out loud, and said them, badly, with a shaking voice and a red face. And she said, "Oh, sure, no problem." That was it. 8 minutes, mild annoyance, done. The monster in my head was a paper tiger.
A paper tiger. Something that looks terrifying and is actually harmless. That's the perfect image for most of our fears, isn't it?
Exactly. And here's the strange gift. After that, every confrontation got a little easier and a little less terrifying. I trained my fear like a muscle. It got weaker as I got braver. And I learned that the anticipation was always worse than the thing itself.
Anticipation, that's the word. Fear lives in the future. The actual moment is rarely as bad as the hour we spend dreading it.
So where does fear come from in the first place? Because it's worth remembering, fear kept our ancestors alive. It's not a flaw, it's a feature.
Right. Evolution built it. There's a little almond-shaped part of your brain called the amygdala that scans for threats and hits the alarm before you've even thought. Fight or flight. Your body floods with adrenaline, ready to run or fight. Back then, that alarm saved lives. Tigers, rival tribes, cliff edges.
But here's the problem. The alarm hasn't updated its software. It's still designed for tigers. And now it goes off for emails, presentations, and text messages left on red.
Left on red. The modern saber-toothed tiger. We're a generation hunted by our own phones. Our brains can't tell the difference between a real threat and a perceived one. So we get the same flood of adrenaline for a job interview as for a charging bear. The system is brilliant and badly out of date.
And that's why the language of fear is so rich, because humans have always lived with it. English is full of fear idioms. My favorite? Scared stiff. So afraid you can't move. Literally stiff as a board. And frozen with fear. Same idea, like your body has stopped working.
And the lighter ones, butterflies in your stomach, that nervous fluttering before a big moment, heart in your mouth when fear jumps up your throat, and sweating bullets, sweating heavily from fear or stress, like your body is firing bullets of sweat. Unpleasant image, very true.
And the verbs of fear, to chicken out, to back away at the last moment, to get cold feet, to lose courage right before something important, like a groom running from a wedding.
And the opposite verbs, the brave ones, to pluck up the courage, to gather your courage from somewhere deep inside, to bite the bullet, to accept something painful and just do it, and to take the plunge, to make the big decision after hesitating. These are the words of people who felt the fear and did it anyway.
Felt the fear and did it anyway. That's the classic definition of courage, and we'll come back to it. But first, let's disagree, because I know we're going to. Is fear ever useful? You said it kept our ancestors alive, so when is it a friend?
When it's about real danger. If a car is coming while you cross the street, that fear is information. It saves your life. Fear of fire, of falling, of genuinely dangerous people, that's your brain doing its job perfectly. The problem starts when the alarm goes off for things that aren't actually dangerous.
Exactly, and that's the line I draw. Fear is information, but it's not a commander. It's allowed to speak, but you don't have to obey.
Ooh, allowed to speak, not to obey. That's a keeper. And the tricky part is telling the difference. Is this fear warning me about a real tiger, or is it a paper tiger, something that only exists in my head?
Paper tiger again. I like that as our test. So how do you tell them apart in the moment, when your heart is pounding and your thoughts are racing? Because when the adrenaline hits, your brain doesn't do careful analysis. What's the practical test?
I use 3 questions. 1, is there actual physical danger right now? 2, what's the worst that could genuinely happen? 3, how likely is it really? Usually the answers are no, mild embarrassment, and almost never. And once you've answered honestly, the fear shrinks to its real size.
And that's the practice. Because fear shrinks when you look at it directly and grows when you run from it. Every avoidance feeds it. Every confrontation starves it.
Feeding and starving, that's the whole mechanics. Avoidance is junk food for fear. It feels good for a moment and makes the fear stronger. Facing it is the vegetable diet. Unpleasant at first, fantastic long term. We should put that on a poster.
Avoidance is junk food for fear. Poster material. Agreed. Okay, so let's get practical. Our listeners need actual tools. What works based on what we know?
Tool number 1, name it. Fear loves the dark. The vaguer it is, the bigger it gets. Say it out loud. I am afraid of flying. I am afraid of being rejected. Naming a fear pulls it into the light, and in the light, it looks smaller. It's hard to be scared of something you can describe.
Naming it, yes. And my tool, question it. Ask, what's the worst that could happen? And then ask, and what would I do if it did? Because once you have a plan for the worst case, the fear loses its power. If the speech goes badly, I'll make a joke and move on. Suddenly, it's manageable.
And the follow-up question, what's the best that could happen? We only ever rehearse the disaster in our heads, never the triumph. But both are possible. We just choose to imagine the sad ending. It's like watching a movie where you've decided the hero fails before the opening credits.
We only rehearse the disaster. That's so true. And tool 3, the one that changed my life, start smaller than the fear. You don't jump into the deep end of the pool. You take a step, then 2, then 10. Each small win is proof that the fear is lying to you.
Start smaller than the fear. That's exposure therapy in 1 sentence. Fear is a staircase. You climb it 1 step at a time, not in 1 jump. And every step you take shrinks the fear above you.
And one more tool that sounds silly but genuinely works. Breathe. Slow, long exhales. Your body can't tell the difference between a real tiger and a presentation, but a long exhale tells your nervous system, we're okay. Stand down. It's like sending a ceasefire message to your own body.
A ceasefire message. I love that. And it's true. When you exhale longer than you inhale, your heart rate literally slows. You're hacking your own biology. The fear doesn't vanish, but it stops shouting and starts whispering.
Stops shouting and starts whispering. That's the goal, isn't it? Not no fear, quieter fear. Because here's what I want to be honest about. I still get scared. Every time. The toast, the conversations, the big moments. My hands still shake. The difference is, I do it anyway.
And that's the real definition of courage, the one nobody tells you. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's fear that has decided to move forward anyway. The brave people you admire, they're not fearless. They're just better at walking with fear holding their hand.
Walking with fear holding your hand. That's beautiful. Courage isn't a personality type. It's a decision you make, again and again, in small moments.
And the good news? Decisions get easier with practice. Every time you do the scary thing, you're teaching your brain that it survived, and it remembers. The brain learns courage like a muscle learns strength through repeated use.
Okay, time for a game. I've been waiting. Let's play fear or fact. I'll describe a fear, and you tell me, is this fear protecting you from something real, or is it a paper tiger? I love this game, partly because I suspect I'll lose at least 1 round, and you'll never let me forget it. Give me your first fear.
Round 1, public speaking. Your heart races, your voice shakes, 100 pairs of eyes on you. Fear or fact?
Paper tiger, a classic. Yes, your heart races. That's just adrenaline, and it actually makes you sharper. But the danger? There isn't any. Nobody has ever died of embarrassment. It feels fatal, but it isn't. Round 2, asking someone for help.
Round 2, asking someone for help, fear or fact?
Paper tiger, and one of the biggest ones. We're terrified of looking stupid, so we suffer in silence. But here's the fact. People like being asked for help. It makes them feel trusted and useful. The fear says they'll judge you. The reality is they'll help you.
Round 3. A genuine, real threat. A fire alarm. A dark alley at night with footsteps behind you. Fear or fact?
That one's fact. Real fear doing its job. That alarm exists to keep you alive, and you should listen to it. The goal isn't to feel no fear. That's a disability. The goal is to save the fear for the things that deserve it.
So the game's real lesson. Most of our daily fears are paper tigers, but a few are genuine warnings, and the skill is telling them apart. That's a whole superpower, honestly.
It is. It's the skill of a lifetime. And speaking of daily fears, I want to bring this home for our learners because I know exactly what most of them are afraid of.
Say it, because it's the fear we've talked about before. Speaking English in front of others. The fear of making mistakes, sounding silly, being judged. It's the paper tiger that holds more learners back than any grammar rule.
Exactly. And the tools are the same ones we've been using today. Name it. I'm afraid of making mistakes. Question it. What's the worst that could happen? Someone giggles, and then you keep going, and the moment passes. Start smaller than the fear. Talk to one patient friend before a whole class.
And remember, every fluent English speaker on this planet was once a beginner making mistakes. The fear of sounding silly is universal, but so is surviving it. Nobody's fear has ever killed them. It just feels like it will.
Nobody's fear has ever killed them. That should be the motto of every language classroom on Earth. And here's a beautiful truth. The people who learn languages fastest aren't the bravest. They're just the ones who decided to be embarrassed early and often. They got their embarrassment out of the way.
Get your embarrassment out of the way early. That's the best language learning advice we've ever given. Okay, let's gather everything into takeaways. 3 of them. You start.
Takeaway 1, name it and question it. Say the fear out loud, ask what's the worst that could happen, and watch it shrink to its real size. Takeaway 2, start smaller than the fear. One step, then another. Every small win is evidence that the fear is lying.
And takeaway 3 from me, do one thing this week that scares you a little. Not a huge thing, a small, manageable, brave thing. Ask the question you're afraid to ask. Send the message. Have the conversation. Because courage is a muscle, and it only grows with use.
One small brave thing a week, that's a prescription I can get behind. And here's the beautiful part. Those small brave things compound. A year of small brave acts changes your life more than one giant leap ever could.
Small, brave things compound. I want that on a t-shirt. Okay, before we close, I want to ask you the big question, the one we've been circling all episode. Jake, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Not hypothetically. What's the thing right now in your actual life?
Ooh, you're not letting me off the hook today, are you? What would I do if I weren't afraid? I'd start writing. I've had a half-finished novel in a drawer for 7 years. I'm terrified it won't be good enough, so I never finish it, which is guaranteed to fail, which is the irony. The fear of failure has already succeeded.
The fear of failure has already succeeded. That's the most honest sentence you've said all episode. So the fear of a bad novel has cost you 7 years of a maybe good one. What's the first step you could take if fear weren't in charge?
Write one page. That's it. One terrible page on purpose, knowing it's terrible. Because you can edit a terrible page. You can't edit a blank one. And that's the secret nobody tells you about fear. It can't stop you from starting small. It can only stop you from starting big. So start small and let it watch.
Start small and let it watch. I love that image. Fear standing in the corner, arms crossed, watching you take the tiny first step it said you couldn't take. And my answer to the question, what I'd do if I weren't afraid, if fear weren't standing in the doorway, I'd sing properly in public. I've always wanted to, and I've never done it because I'm terrified of being bad at it, even though being bad at singing has never hurt anyone in history.
Being bad at singing has never hurt anyone in history, and yet it stopped you for how many years? That's the paper tiger at its finest. Zero real danger, infinite imaginary one.
Exactly. So here's our promise, listeners, and we need each other for this one. This week, Jake writes one terrible page, and I sing one song badly to at least one person, and we'll report back next episode, whatever happens.
Deal. And if you're listening, make your own promise. One small brave thing. Tell us in the comments what it is, and we'll hold you to it. There's something magical about saying it out loud. Fear hates
witnesses. That's the best line of the episode, and I'm slightly annoyed you said it before I could. So listeners, here's the thought we want to leave you with. Fear will always be there. It's part of being human. The question was never, how do I get rid of fear? It's, who's in charge?
And that's the real title of today's episode, if we had one. Not how to stop feeling fear, but how to stop letting fear decide. Because you can't control the first thought, the fear arriving, but you can control the second thought, the choice to act anyway.
You can't control the first thought, but you can control the second. That's the whole philosophy in one sentence, and it's the most empowering one I know. Between the fear and your action, there's a tiny gap, and in that gap lives your freedom.
The gap between fear and action. That's where courage lives. And it's where everything interesting in life happens. The speech, the conversation, the flight, the song, the page, all of them are born in that gap.
All of them are born in that gap. Thank you all so much for being here today. If this episode gave you the nudge to do something brave, a conversation, a flight, a page, tell us in the comments. We love hearing how your small brave things turn out.
And if you're a learner, remember, speaking English is one of those small brave things. Every time you open your mouth in a new language, you're doing something most of the world is too afraid to try. You're already braver than you think.
You're already braver than you think, and that's not a compliment, it's a fact. Because bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's fear that has decided to keep going. And you've kept going, through every lesson, every mistake, every awkward conversation. That's courage, wearing a learner's badge.
Courage wearing a learner's badge. I'm going to put that on a graduation certificate. Okay, one final promise from me. Next time fear tells me I can't, I'll ask it the 3 questions. And then I'll do the thing anyway. Small if I have to, but I'll do it.
And next time fear shows up at my door, I'll remember the paper tiger. And I'll open the door anyway, because that's what the people I admire do. And it's what we're all learning to do. One small brave thing at a time.
One small brave thing at a time. That's the whole journey. Thank you for walking part of it with us today. Take care of yourselves, and take care of your courage, because it's the most precious thing you own.
Goodbye, everyone. Feel the fear and do it anyway. We'll see you next time.
And remember, the bravest people you know are not the ones without fear. They're the ones who got out of bed anyway. If you're scared right now, good. That means you're about to grow. Be brave, everyone. Bye.